I know self-publishing's not for everyone. Nothing is. But if you've considered self-publishing for even a minute, listen up, because I'm betting I know what's holding you back from exploring it further or getting started. Number one, you think the self-publishing process is a lot harder than it actually is. And number two, you're understandably afraid of doing it, air quote, wrong. So I've created a new free resource for you. It's called the Self-Publishing Starter Kit, and you can get instant access to it by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting publishaprofitablebook.com/self-publishing 101. In this free training, you'll discover the exact 4 steps to focus on and mistakes to avoid so you can publish an incredible book that's indistinguishable in quality from a New York Times bestseller without overthinking, overguessing, or overspending in areas that won't make a difference. Again, visit publishaprofitablebook.com/self-publishing 101 to get instant access. Welcome to the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a 6-time author and book editor, and I help people write and publish powerful, thought-provoking, wildly entertaining books without any more overthinking, second-guessing, or overwhelm than absolutely necessary. Because let's face it, some overthinking, second-guessing, and overwhelm is going to come with the territory if you're anything like me. I believe that story and shared perspective are 2 of the most potent ways we connect with one another, and that your story, perspective, and insights are destined to become someone else's favorite resource or pastime. For more book writing and publishing tips and solutions, and plenty of free and low-cost resources, visit publishaprofitablebook.com. And for recommendations of fabulous books you've possibly never heard of, book writing inspiration, and the occasional meme so relatable you'll wonder if it was created with you in mind, follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth Lyons Author. Hi there, and welcome back. I was so excited this week to have the opportunity once again to talk with Zibby Owens. She came on, she was probably one of my very first guests, honestly, on this podcast. She came on I think it was about a year ago to talk about her memoir, Bookends. And this time she came on to chat about her novel, Blank, which comes out March 5th of 2024. One of the things I try to do on this podcast is ask questions that aren't being asked on all the other podcasts. Number one, because I think that podcast guests get question fatigue, like they're asked some of the same things, understandably, by the way, I'm not judging that, but over and over again. And also because being an author myself and also working with authors and talking to authors all day, every day, one of the ways that Zibby's experience kind of crosses over both is she's an author and she works with authors. Obviously, she runs Zibby Books. When I first talked to her a year or so ago, that had basically just launched, Zibby Books. So it was fun to get her insights into the differences between, for her, writing memoir and writing fiction, how she balances the art of being an author and being a business person. This incredible tour that she has coming up that she's put together by herself. I think she's going to over 50 different cities, or at least 50 different locations, to speak about Blank and to meet people and to connect with readers and other writers. And as always, I've put all of the links to everything Zibby, her novels, and also the first episode that she was on Write the Damn Book Already in the show notes so that you can reference any and all of it. But now let's just hop right into the interview. So I don't know if this is a common question you get, but I'm curious. I might know the answer, or I might know part of the answer, but I, of course, want to hear it from you. Why did you choose to publish with little a instead of doing it through Zibby Books?
I am very loyal, and Carmen at little a published my memoir, Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, and together we brainstormed and finalized like the concept for this book, and I've been with her from the beginning, so it was a no-brainer for me.
Okay. And even with Bookends, did you ever consider doing it? It really kind of like it was a cross timeline, right? With the beginning of Zibby Books.
It was. We were not in a position to publish. Also, I like having it be a little bit separate. And I like feeling valued for my work, that I'm not, it almost feels like self-publishing, even though I have a real publishing house.
Yeah.
Like if nobody else thinks it's good, I need the validation.
I love that you say that, because I was wondering this morning, I was thinking about it again, and I thought, I wonder if there's an element of like separation of church and state, for lack of a better, where you just want to feel like my books are over there.
Yes.
And then the Zibby books, my author's books, are over here. And you don't maybe feel like there's a question as to where time is going and where efforts are going. Does that play into it a little bit too?
It does. And I will say, because the publishing house is me, and I am still me writing, regardless of who publishes it. We're all sort of invested in the success of blank as well.
Yeah.
But at least I'm not monopolizing resources, and church and state. Like nobody needs to see.
Church and state. Right?
Yeah. I don't want to see the underbelly of how my own book is made.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm experiencing that right now, actually working on my first novel. So I wanted to ask you, when you went from memoir to fiction, how did that go? Right? What surprised you? What challenged you about those two genres? What did you not expect?
Well, I had written fiction before, it just had not sold.
Right.
So I've always kind of wavered between those two genres, but this was different in that I had a deadline.
Okay.
And deliverables and a concept that had been signed off on. So what I was not expecting was how the circumstances that I wrote under had to be so different. When I write nonfiction, when I write memoir, when I write essays, like I do this in the doctor's office waiting for my kids. I'll do it anywhere, anywhere is fine. And I can jump right in and out. But with fiction, for whatever reason, like I need a big period of time, and I need like total quiet, and I get neither of those things very often.
Right.
And I get really tired. Like I can write
nonfiction
forever, but I after an hour or two, I get so depleted. I have to close my eyes for a second. And then I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, even if I'm writing on an airplane, which is, which meets the criteria, especially long flights, but I don't know. I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah. And I find that really also interesting, because I always thought, as someone who's written all nonfiction, I thought, fiction will be, and see the air quotes, but easy, right? Because you get to kind of make up as much of it as you want, if not all of it. And so I thought, God, this will just be this super creative space in which I get to live. But I'm not finding that to be the case for me. And I'm wondering about you. I feel that the overthinking is in overdrive. Did you have that at all? Or what do you feel like made you feel more tired?
I don't know. It felt like an exorcism, I mean, it's one thing to be observe things, right?
Right.
When I write from life, it's like being one of the guys on the street who does caricatures, right? You see a person in front of you, and then you draw it. And then all of a sudden you tell the caricaturist, okay, now draw nobody. And you're like, what?
Right.
Draw someone you might imagine, but who isn't real. Okay. Well, I don't know. I wasn't used to doing that. So, so it's fun, but you can't interpret things and find the funny spin on them. You have to create them. So.
Exactly. And you have to create dimensions that you don't even think you have to create. And this is probably the first time that I'm really understanding the concept that we as authors have the idea in our heads of who the character is, but we don't always spell it out well on the page. And so, I mean, that's of course where editing comes in and all of that.
Yes.
As an author and a business person, how do you find, or probably it's more create balance? And I don't mean balance in the sense, because I don't even believe balance exists at this point. It's ever fleeting, I feel, in the way that we talk about work-life balance or balance between these things. But how do you, for lack of a better word, balance being a business person and being an author, and not letting, for me, it's the author side that always slips. I will be the first to talk about my clients' books or anybody else's books, my friends' books, before I'll talk about my own book. What's your experience with that?
Yes, I could fill every day with business stuff and never make the time to write. very easily. In fact, I have been doing that for the last few months.
Yeah.
I do think it's really important if you're an author to also be a business person, because you have to get out there and sell your book now more than ever. I mean, the author as brand, as you well know and preach and everything, is paramount. You have to do that. And, and to the extent that you can market and find an audience for your book, so that's better. I honestly have to create really discrete times. And I'm wondering when on earth I'm going to do this, because I'm writing another book, or I'm about to start writing another book. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? Because I definitely need a couple days. So when I had to finish blank, because what happened was I wrote it, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. But it was only 30,000 words. And I was like, well, here it is. And my editor was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, no, I got to the end of my story. So I don't really want to write anymore. I wrote about what interested me, and I had to go back then and layer on a ton of stuff. So it got to the point where I had 20,000 more words to write and a weekend. So I took a day off of work. I put it in quotes because I don't know, I'm always working. It's what anyway. So I said, and I even told people on Instagram, not like anybody cared, but I was like, the next 3 days, I'm finishing this novel. I'm not going to check Instagram. I'm not checking email. I'm holding myself up and just getting this done. And I did, but I don't know. I need that separation. So I hope I can find it again.
Right. And I think it's when you were writing blank or even bookends, I don't know if the process changed at all. I mean, your life changed, but I think that's something that I don't think people talk about a lot, is that authors' lives change between books.
True.
So the process that worked for you, for one book, I was talking the other day to Jessica Saunders, whose debut, Love Me, right?
I love her. I love her. She's amazing.
She's a doll. She really is. And she was saying that when she was writing Love Me, it was during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So she had, as a practicing attorney, she wasn't practicing in quite the same way, right? She had more disposable time, or time that she could allot to that. But now working on her next book, it's a totally different ball game.
Yes.
So how did things shift for you, or did they, in terms of carving out that time? Are you somebody who needs to sit down for an hour? Do you need to carve out an hour or two? Can you do it in 10-minute increments?
No, I need a lot of time. Honestly, I need half a day.
Really?
I need to, and then I always forget, who are these characters? When was the last time I even wrote this thing?
Really?
I have to go back. Yeah, I have a terrible memory. I feel like I have to go back and read blank again, just to remember.
I love that you're saying that.
Yeah. And so I have to, and then sometimes I'm reading it again to remind myself where I was, and I have to write little notes oh no, I forgot I made this change in the last time. So the first part of the day is just rereading it all and remembering, and then I can jump into it. I guess if I did it every day and this was my main thing, it would be on that front easier, because I could just pick up where I left off, as opposed to letting a month go by and being where was I? So, ideally I would have, 9 to 1 every day.
Really?
No other, but that's not my life. That's just not my life.
I sometimes wonder if it's not my life either, but if it could be my life, I wonder how sustainable that would be. I don't know. Do you feel like you're somebody who could, if you could, right, write for 4 hours a day?
I could write for 11 hours straight.
Really?
I flew home one time from Greece, and I wrote the whole time. 11, and somebody in the aisle was like, how did you do that? But I could really do it. I can write for a long time. In fact, I mean, if I just had 2 weeks, I could get a draft. Even if it's not a full draft, I could get to the end of the story, and then filling in is much easier for me. Filling in and writing scenes, that I don't need quiet or peace or whatever. That is fine. I can do that. But it's getting the whole story out. I don't know. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just because I was teaching myself, and now this time will be easier, and it'll get progressively easier.
But that's kind of what I mean by things shift.
Yeah.
Right? And I think sometimes we think, oh, this next one will be easier because now I've done one, but then there's some hiccup that doesn't make it easier. You're trying to challenge yourself to do. When I was talking to Sarah Lynn Bruck, Light of the Fire, which is coming out soon too, she was like, I thought this was so interesting. She challenges herself with each book to do something different. So to add in a thriller component, or I don't know, something that's different, I don't want to say forces her to elevate her game, but she just
Yep.
wants to write. She wants to
Yep.
become a better writer by doing that. And so if that is one's approach, then inevitably the next book, you're going to kind of be like, oh God, this is right.
Yeah.
Are you with Blank? Were you a plotter, a pantser? Did you know how it ended when you started those first 30,000?
I got to where I had originally intended, but then when I went back, I changed a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I changed a lot. And I changed entire characters, and I added like full-on subplots, and yeah, it was like I had only done the base layer, and then it was like the next level came after that.
So for you then, is the base layer the air quote hardest?
Yes.
Okay.
The base layer is the hardest.
And I mean, what do you just keep? I love to ask people like, so what do you, and I think I'm asking selfishly because I'm still trying to figure out my base layer. And I'm like, I'm going to be 97 when I think I've figured out the base layer. It's getting to that point. At what point do you say this is the base layer?
I don't know. I just like got to the end.
Okay.
Like I knew where I was going.
You did?
Yeah, I knew where I was going. And
yeah, I don't know where I'm going. Maybe that's my problem. Can we chat about this Goodreads fiasco?
Yes.
Okay. So it's such an interesting, and I want to try to turn it sort of positively. So people can go back and they can read with that. So we don't have to rehash the whole thing. They can go read all your posts and your Substack to get the background of what happened and why it was so disturbing. And it certainly wasn't the first. And sadly, I mean, I wish I could say I thought it would be the last, but probably not. What are your thoughts having experienced some, Goodreads is a very important platform, especially for fiction authors. And there are a lot of people in the industry now suggesting that it's not as important as it once was. I don't know. What's your professional opinion on it in terms of its importance? Like when you watch your own authors needing to get reviews there and readers getting suggestions there and things like that. And how has that switched a little bit in terms of maybe how you're encouraging authors to advocate for themselves so that they don't get caught up in this mess? I mean, this mess is like, I got an email from you yesterday that said, I'm shutting down this email because as you mentioned, right? Someone went out and subscribed you to thousands of things and your email is just littered. So as though you have time to deal with that.
Oh my gosh, I had to spend another 3 hours on it yesterday, changing passwords with my whole team because my email is linked to so many of my business things because things have just grown so organically. And, it's like, who has the Staples account? I mean, it's been a nightmare. But basically, yeah, the crux of it is I went on Goodreads for Blank, and we're talking now still in January. It comes out March 1st. And when I looked at the rating, you can then click and you see how many 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 and 1. And I had a 1-star rating kind of dragging down the average. And I wanted to see who it was. And it was someone who accused my book of, I'm Jewish and accused it of being, Zionist, racist, blah, 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 blah. And which is of course not true. And I was like, well, that's not fair. I can't have like somebody who's just anti-Semitic bringing down my ranking. And I kind of thought about it for a day or two. And then I was like, well, maybe I can do something about it. Like, why not speak up? Because I can't be the only person this has happened to. So I spoke up about it and I wrote a whole Substack, and so many people came to my aid and helped me report the person that not only did they take the thing down by the end of the day, which I felt like was a massive victory because I didn't think they would ever take that person's profile down. But now my ranking is up, which was not even the point. I mean, it was the point in that it shouldn't be artificially pulled down. But now I've gotten more people to actually even do it. So I think from a publishing perspective, I think people need to look at the numbers with a great deal of caution. If you see all positive reviews and start reading through them and they all are legitimately positive, that's great. I think that means a lot. And if they're all negative or there's a big trend, I think that means a lot. But I think, on the margins, it's important to dig a little bit deeper than the number itself and see what the ratings are. Is it a smattering of all different, who are the people rating? So if you take the time, if you really care about a book and why you're even checking that ranking, I think you have to dig a little deeper.
And even when it comes to social media, because so many people are having their social media hijacked. And it truly is so easy to, I mean, I don't want to give it, I don't think I'm giving out any ideas here that anybody hasn't already had who's trying to do something not in a great way, but you just have to screenshot someone's posts and copy their captions, and then you replicate, their entire feed. And it can be very challenging I remember last year when you consolidated everything. Remember when everything, I say remember, like you're like, no, I don't remember that. When everything went from into Zibby Media, essentially, like there were all these different things and it was growing organically and you didn't necessarily know what, so you just created new things and then you consolidated everything. But when one person takes the time to hijack something, whether it's your rating or your social media, it really, not only is it just a pain in the ass, but it can really, I think, cause some people, especially authors who don't have a big team. It's like, how do I even recover from this?
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah. It's quite debilitating. I've literally spent hours and hours.
Yeah.
My team only came into play when I had to go through not only all my personal stuff, but then also my business stuff, which is shame on me for having, melding those to begin with. But it's just happened that way. But yeah, there are so many things people who want to do bad things can do and do. So, I get spam on many things I post almost every day. I just delete it all, but it's like, I don't know. There are bad people out there. I don't know what to say.
So for Blank, you have this huge tour. I feel like it's getting bigger by the day. Do you feel like it's getting bigger by the day?
I have decided it's done. This is it. Until somebody asks me to go somewhere else. No, I'm kidding. But I am not going to add more things. I had my kids draw all the stops on a map.
I saw that this morning.
And I'm not adding any more. At least not. I'm not going any more places for the next 6 months. These will be my places. I hope. Yeah. I can always add more events, but in places where I am. But I don't want to take any more trips than I have planned if I can avoid it. But yeah, I'm going to like 20 states or something crazy.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It might be too much.
Did you start that way though? Did you say I want to do or did it just like everything else? Did it just kind of take on a life of its own?
It just took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to some of the places that I wanted to go. Like there's there's this bookshop I wanted to see in like Missouri, and I'm not going to get a chance to go there. It's fine. Like I'll get there eventually. But there are a lot more. I want to go everywhere. Right now I don't have Portland and Seattle on there, and I really want to go back to those places or go to those places. But I don't know. I'm excited to travel and celebrate and meet readers. This is more than just my book. This is my whole thing. My whole brand and company is what I'm sort of, dragging around the United States. It's not just for the book, but no. And I'm just excited. I'm excited to meet people and meet readers where they are and spread the word all over. And my book is just a mechanism for getting there.
Right. So when you're doing all these sorts of things, you're melding it all together, essentially. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to use the cliche phrase, like, what is it? Well, I the phrase kill two birds with one stone is so violent.
It really is.
It really is. Like, who came up with that? But because I don't have anything better yet this morning.
Yeah.
I think that when authors from a business standpoint can think that way. So for example, I'm already let's say you're going somewhere for something that wasn't business related, right? You're already there. So what might you be able to do there? Whether it's with a library or an indie bookstore or just in a coffee shop, because you have some interesting venues. It's not all bookstores.
It's not all bookstores. Yeah.
And I love that.
I'm going to Jenny's Ice Cream because that's where
oh my gosh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is bringing me back because I went to Ohio State. And so Jenny's Ice Cream, that was big. And when I first saw them in the grocery store, I was like, that can't be the same Jenny, but it was the same logo. I was like, that has to be the same. And it was just so cool that they went from, at the time, they were so little and not anymore, but
oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. This is terrifying to ask you. What are you reading now?
Oh, I'm reading Other People's Words, Friendship, Loss, and the Conversations That Never End by Lissa Soep, Soep. And it is so good. And it's not that long. It's about two losses of friends she had at different points in her life in different ways, and how conversation itself in different ways has gotten her through it. It's very interesting.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
I thought this was a really fun question to ask at the end of every interview. And now it's like a blessing and a curse because the pile is, as you can imagine, I mean, we just discover new books and new authors every day.
Yes.
You know, and do people ever say to you, I said that was the last question. This is the last question. Do people ever say, have you heard of fill in the blank? And you're like, no, I have not heard of that.
Yep. All the time.
It's incredible.
I know. I'm like, I thought I was trying to stay up on everything. I feel like such a failure. This is so embarrassing. Yes.
But it's just the way it is. And yet it gives you just one more thing to dive into, right?
I don't know. If I haven't heard of it, I'm like, I don't know. I'll get to it eventually. I mean, we can all only read so much.
Only so many hours in the day. Well, thank you. I'll see you soon because you'll be out this way. Thank goodness.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Thank you as always. And I'll link everything below. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to follow or subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone you know has a great story or message, but isn't sure what to do next. Also, remember to check out publishaprofitablebook.com for book writing resources and tips, and to see all the ways we can work together to get your book out into the world. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk with you again soon.